I'm Mia, and I married my college sweetheart, Aiden. We were young, full of dreams, and I believed our happiness would be everlasting. My father, a successful entrepreneur who owned a shoe factory, generously gifted us a beautiful home for our wedding. 4 years later, our son Wyatt was born, and I dedicated myself to being an impeccable housewife and mother. I maintained our home meticulously, cooked exquisite meals, and ensured Wyatt had everything he needed. Aiden's career as a regional manager was stagnating, which left him increasingly dissatisfied. One evening, he returned home, visibly agitated and frustrated. "Mia, I can't stand this anymore," he exclaimed, pounding his fist on the kitchen table. "I'm working tirelessly, and for what? Just scraps." I tried to respond calmly, asking what he wanted me to do. Suddenly, his eyes brightened. "Your father could offer me a job at the factory, maybe even a chief executive officer. Could you talk to him?" he pleaded. I hesitated, knowing my father valued fairness in his business, and I didn't want to exploit our relationship. However, seeing Aiden's desperate look, I agreed to discuss it with my father. The next day, I visited my father at his office. With nerves tingling, I broached the subject. "Dad, Aiden is unhappy with his job. Is there any chance you could find a place for him here at the factories?" After a thoughtful pause, my father agreed to give Aiden an opportunity, but made it clear he would need to prove himself like anyone else. When I relayed the good news to Aiden, he was overjoyed, lifting me off the ground in a whirl of excitement. "You're incredible, Mia. This will change everything for us." And for a time, it did. Aiden's new job improved our finances significantly, alleviating that particular stress. However, as one problem diminished, another emerged: my relationship with Aiden's mother, Sophia. Sophia was a formidable presence, overly protective of her son, and openly critical of me. She often visited unannounced, scrutinized my homemaking, and demanded my constant attention. One afternoon, while I was busy preparing dinner, Sophia stormed in. "Mia, I need you to take me shopping right now," she demanded. Trying to keep my composure, I explained I was in the middle of something, but could perhaps manage it the next day. Her response was sharp and dismissive, questioning if I considered her needs unimportant. I swallowed my frustration, promising to hurry up and take her shortly. As I drove Sophia to the mall, enduring her relentless critiques of my driving, cooking, and virtually everything else, I pondered how my life had led to this point. I was a smart, capable woman, yet here I was, constantly bending to the will of others while my own aspirations were neglected. On another taxing afternoon, Sophia burst into our home without notice. "Mia, I'm starving. Make me something to eat," she demanded. Suppressing a sigh, I paused my chores and headed to the kitchen. As I prepared her meal, she sat at the table, issuing criticisms and complaints, underscoring the stark contrast between the life I envisioned and the one I was living. Every time I cooked, she would criticize. "You're using too much oil," she snapped one evening. "And for heaven's sake, cut those vegetables smaller. Don't you know how to cook properly?" As I set the finished meal on the table, hoping she would eat and leave, she surprised me further. Gathering all the food I had prepared, she announced, "I'll be taking this with me. I have bridge club tonight, and this will make great snacks." I watched in disbelief. "But Sophia, that was supposed to be our dinner." "Oh, you can always make more," she said dismissively, already at the door. "It's not like you have anything better to do." The door slammed shut behind her, leaving me feeling utterly defeated. Glancing at the clock, I realized I had less than an hour to whip up something else before Aiden arrived home from work. When Aiden walked in, he was puzzled by the chaos. "What's going on?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Why isn't dinner ready?" I recounted the episode with his mother, hoping for some sympathy or support. Instead, his expression hardened. "Mom was here, and you didn't make her feel welcome?" he demanded. "Accommodating?" I repeated, incredulous. "Aiden, she took our dinner. She treats me like a servant in my own home." Aiden shook his head, annoyed. "You're exaggerating. Mom just wants to feel loved and appreciated." "Is that too much to ask?" We ate the hastily prepared meal in tense silence. Aiden, once my high school sweetheart and closest confidant, now seemed like a stranger across the table. One evening, Aiden arrived home visibly upset, his face red with anger. "Mia," he bellowed, "your father is a tyrant. He humiliates people and uses them like pawns in his games." I was shocked. My father had always been just and kind. "What happened?" I asked gently. "I stood up for an employee today. Your father was treating him unfairly, and I couldn't just watch. And you know what your so-called precious daddy did? He fired me on the spot." This doesn't sound like dad at all. "There must be some misunderstanding," I suggested, but Aiden was irate. "No," he roared. "You will not speak to your father. As far as we're concerned, they no longer exist for us. Do you understand?" I nodded, too stunned and frightened to argue. In the following days, Aiden secured another job and things seemed to stabilize, but the warmth and love that once defined our relationship had been replaced by fear and resentment. As the years passed, our son Wyatt grew up, often inquiring about his grandparents. Aiden would dismiss any discussion about them. "You have one grandmother," he would state firmly. "My mother. That's all you need to know." As Wyatt prepared to leave for college, I felt a swirl of pride and sadness. My baby was growing up, stepping out into a world much larger than the confines of our strained family ties. Over the years, I found myself trapped in a tedious routine, catering to every demand of Aiden and enduring the relentless criticism of Sophia. Without Wyatt to mediate, their harsh treatment worsened. One day, as I diligently scrubbed the kitchen floor under Sophia's scrutinizing gaze, the phone rang. I reached out to answer it, but Sophia grabbed it before I could. "I'll take this," she snapped sharply, instructing me to focus on the still dirty floor. Frustrated, I resumed scrubbing, but couldn't help overhearing Sophia's conversation. "Yes, this is Mia's residence," she said with obvious contempt. "I'm sorry, but Mia can't come to the phone. Please don't call here again." My heart raced as I realized it was my father on the line. "Wait," I exclaimed, but it was too late. Sophia had already hung up. "That was your father," she stated coldly. "I told him not to contact you again. You should be grateful I'm protecting our family from those harmful influences." Anger welled up inside me. "You had no right," I protested, my voice trembling. "He's my father. I deserve to speak with him." Just then, Aiden entered. "What's happening here?" he demanded. Sophia, feigning hurt, played the victim. "Oh, Aiden, your wife is being disrespectful to me after everything I do for this family." Aiden's gaze darkened as he turned to me. "Is this true, Mia? Are you disrespecting my mother's?" I tried to explain, but words failed me. I knew that regardless of what I said, Aiden would side with his mother. A year slipped by since that day, each moment more stifling than the last, with Aiden and Sophia tightening their grip on my life. Then, one crisp autumn morning, everything shifted. The phone rang while I was preparing breakfast. Aiden was in the shower, and Sophia had not yet started her daily critique of my chores. Seizing the moment, I answered the call. "Hello," I said tentatively. "Mia, is that you?" It was my father's voice, a mix of familiarity and distance. "It's your mother," he continued. "She's very ill. The doctors don't think she has much time. She needs you." "We both do." I heard the bathroom door open. Aiden would be downstairs any moment. "I'll try." "Dad," I whispered urgently, hanging up just as Aiden walked into the kitchen. "Who is that?" he asked, suspicion lacing his tone. I inhaled deeply, gathering my courage. It was my father. "My mother is very ill. She's dying. I need to go see her." Aiden's expression turned to stone. "Absolutely not. We've been through this, Mia. Your parents don't exist for us anymore." Something inside me snapped. For the first time in years, I stood my ground. "I'm going, Aiden. With or without your permission. I am determined to stay by my mother's side and bid her farewell." With a resolved expression, Aiden concedes, "All right, but just one day. That's all I'm giving you. Then, you come back where you belong." I nod, barely holding back my emotions. One day is a small mercy, but it's better than none at all. My hands tremble as I phone my son, Wyatt, who surprises me by offering to join me the following morning. Early the next day, Wyatt and I travel to the house where I grew up. My father, visibly aged and worn by sorrow, greets us at the door and embraces me tightly. He escorts us to where my mother rests. Despite her frailty and pale appearance, her eyes sparkle with recognition when she sees me. "Mia," she murmurs, extending a shaky hand. "My darling girl." I rush to her, taking her hand gently. "Mom, I'm here. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me?" She smiles faintly. "There's nothing to forgive, my dear. I'm just happy you're here now." We spend the day reminiscing and reconnecting. As dusk settles, my mother's breaths grow shallow. Holding my hand tightly, she looks into my eyes. "Mia, promise me you'll truly live your life. Don't let anyone suppress your spirit," she says softly. Tears roll down my cheeks as I nod. "I promise, Mom. I promise." She smiles one last time before closing her eyes forever. As I grapple with the loss, my phone rings persistently. I know it's Aiden without looking. I step into the hallway to answer, Aiden's voice harsh and impatient. "Where are you, Mia? You should have been back by now." I reply, voice choked with grief. "Aiden, I can't leave. Mom just died. I need to stay for the funeral." He erupts, "No. I gave you one day. If you're not back tomorrow, don't bother returning." His ultimatum lingers, both a threat and a vow. For a moment, I consider yielding, returning to the life I've known. But my mother's final words echo in my mind, inspiring me to embrace my life fully. "No," I say firmly. "I'm staying." I hang up before he can react, my heart racing. For the first time, I've defied Aiden, and the feeling is both terrifying and liberating. The following days are a whirlwind of sorrow and funeral preparations. On the day of the funeral, as we stand by my mother's grave, my phone rings again. Aiden's name appears, and impulsively, I hit the speaker button to quickly mute it. His voice, loud and furious, fills the air. "Mia, this is your last chance. Come home now, or I'll come get you myself." "You ungrateful." I cut the call, surrounded by the solemnity of the moment and the support of my family. I am resolute, empowered by my mother's spirit and the strength I've found in defiance. After ending a distressing phone call, I felt my cheeks flush with a mix of shame and anger. Around us, the mourners at the cemetery appeared visibly taken aback, and Wyatt looked furious. My father, however, seemed mostly concerned. Once the funeral service concluded, he drew me aside. "Mia," he began softly as we found a secluded spot near the edge of a cemetery. "There's something important I need to tell you about Aiden. Something I regret not sharing sooner." As we stood under the shadow of the old trees, my father inhaled deeply before revealing the unsettling truth about Aiden's departure from the company years earlier. It wasn't due to his defense of an employee as I had been led to believe. Instead, Aiden had been caught embezzling funds, manipulating prices to skim profits for himself. My father had dismissed him to protect both the company and its clients. "I kept this from you because I thought you loved him, and I didn't want to drive a wedge between you," my father explained. "But now, seeing how he treats you and what your life has become, I can't keep silent any longer." His words felt like a tremor beneath my feet. For years, I had lived under the illusion of Aiden's integrity, enduring not only his deceptions, but also the emotional cruelty from him and his sister Sophia. Everything had been built on falsehoods. "There's more," my father added gravely. "I've heard from a reliable source that Aiden's new company is under investigation for similar irregularities." This revelation was both devastating and oddly freeing. The life I knew was collapsing, but it also presented an opportunity for a fresh start. The next day, Wyatt, my father, and I returned to my home, only to discover it teeming with people and the aromas of a lively gathering. Unbeknownst to me, Sophia had organized a birthday party for herself. Upon our arrival, Sophia, wine in hand, eyed us coldly. "Look who finally decided to show up," she sneered. "You're late, Mia." My birthday started hours ago. Caught off guard by the chaos and having forgotten the occasion, I was speechless. Sophia thrust a stained rag into my hands. "Don't just stand there," she ordered sharply. "Start cleaning up. These tables won't wipe themselves." My father, who had been quietly observing, suddenly interjected with a powerful voice. "How dare you treat my daughter like that?" he exclaimed, silencing the room. "She's not here to serve at your command. She deserves respect." Sophia's response was scornful. Respect? She forfeited any right to respect when she married Aiden. She's nothing to us now. The room fell into an uneasy silence as my father and Sophia continued their heated exchange, the guests looking on awkwardly. Suddenly, Aiden burst in, demanding to know what was causing the commotion. He locked eyes with me, his gaze heavy with accusation. "Mia, why aren't you attending to the guests? And why are they here?" He pointed towards my father and Wyatt, his anger palpable. Something within me reached its breaking point, releasing years of suppressed frustration and rage. "No, Aiden," I replied, my voice calm yet firm. "I won't be serving anyone, cleaning up after them, or staying quiet any longer." The room fell silent. Even Sophia seemed at a loss for words. "I know the truth, Aiden," I continued, my resolve strengthening as I produced the divorce papers I had hastily drafted. "I understand why you really left my father's company, and I can't continue this way. I want a divorce." For a moment, Aiden looked ready to attack, but realizing he was outnumbered, his defiance seemed to drain away. "Fine," he hissed. "Take your divorce, but you won't get a dime from me." I couldn't suppress a chuckle. "This house is mine, Aiden. Remember, my father gifted it to us when we got married. It's you who needs to find somewhere else to live." Aiden and Sophia soon left, casting bitter glares our way. As the door shut behind them, I collapsed onto the couch, overwhelmed by exhaustion. Wyatt, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "Mom, why didn't you tell me things were this bad?" "I'm sorry, Wyatt," I sighed. "I thought I was protecting you, but I was actually teaching you the wrong lessons about love and respect." In the ensuing weeks, my life took a new direction. The divorce proceedings began, and I devoted myself to forging a new path. My father, supportive as ever, was by my side throughout. One afternoon, as we sat in his study, he broached an unexpected topic. "Mia," he said, his tone gentle yet serious, "I'm not getting any younger, and the factory needs fresh energy. How would you feel about joining me at work?" Surprised, I responded, "Me? But, Dad, I don't know the first thing about running a business." He chuckled softly. "I didn't either when I started."
"You're smart, Mia."
"You'll learn. It's time for you to spread your wings." Over the next few months, I immersed myself in learning about the business. My father was a patient teacher, guiding me through the nuances of managing a shoe factory. I discovered a newfound passion for design and innovation. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings with Aiden were contentious. He challenged the ownership of the house and tried to turn Wyatt against me. Despite his efforts, justice prevailed. I was awarded the house and substantial compensation for the years of emotional turmoil he caused. Aiden, now facing charges for his unethical actions, found himself mired in debt and stripped of his ability to hold any chief executive officer. As for Sophia, she faded into obscurity, her influence over my life finally severed. The last I heard, she had moved in with someone else, leaving her past and me behind. For years had passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. So much had changed in such a short time, especially after the truth about Aiden came out, and it felt like my world shifted along with it. But then, one Sunday morning, something happened that I could never have prepared for. I was called into my father's office. When I walked in, I immediately noticed how different he looked. His face was pale and serious, and his usual confident demeanor was replaced with one of quiet sadness. He motioned for me to sit, his voice thick with emotion. "Mia," he said, the weight of his words making me freeze. "I'm not well. The doctors, they don't think I have much time left." I felt the floor beneath me give way as panic rushed through my veins. "Dad, no," I whispered, reaching out for his hand. He squeezed my fingers gently, trying to offer me some comfort despite his own pain. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said softly. "I've had a good life. And now, I can go knowing you're strong, that you'll be all right, and that you're free." Tears welled up in my eyes as he continued, his voice steady despite the news. "I'm leaving everything to you, Mia. The business, the house, all of it. You've proven yourself more than capable. I know you'll take care of it." In the weeks that followed, we spent as much time together as possible, knowing that each moment was precious. My father's health declined quickly, but his spirit remained unbroken. He passed away quietly in his sleep, leaving behind a legacy I was now responsible for carrying on. News of his death and my inheritance spread like wildfire through our small town. As I tried to adjust to my new life without him, something unexpected happened. On a crisp autumn afternoon, I heard the doorbell ring. When I opened it, I was shocked to find Aiden standing there, holding a bouquet of flowers, his face filled with regret. "Mia," he said softly, his voice lower than I had heard it in years. "I'm so sorry about your father. May I come in?" Despite the years of distance and pain, I reluctantly stepped aside, allowing him into the house. We stood in the foyer, awkward silence stretching between us. Finally, Aiden broke it. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Mia, about us, about everything. I know I made terrible mistakes, but I've changed. My mom, she passed away last month, and now there's nothing standing between us. We can be happy together again." Before I could even respond, I heard a car pull up in the driveway. Moments later, the front door opened, and a tall, distinguished man walked in. "Mia, darling, I'm home," he called out, his voice warm and familiar. But when he saw Aiden, he froze, confusion and anger flickering across his face. "Who the hell is this?" Aiden demanded, his eyes shifting between us. The man stepped forward, extending his hand to Aiden. "I'm Angel, Mia's husband. And you are—" Aiden ignored the hand and sneered. "Husband? You're remarried? You traitor." His voice was full of rage. Angel's expression hardened immediately. He stepped between us, his voice calm but dangerous. "I suggest you leave, now. And don't ever speak to my wife like that again." Aiden lunged forward, but Angel was faster. He grabbed Aiden by the arm, pulling him toward the door with surprising strength. "This is your one and only warning. Stay away from Mia. If you ever come near her again or insult her like that, you'll regret it." With that, Angel slammed the door shut, leaving Aiden outside, his face filled with fury as the screeching sound of his tires faded away. Angel turned to me, his face softening with concern. "Are you okay, loves?" I nodded, stepping into his embrace. "I'm fine. I'm just glad you're home," I said, a smile forming despite the chaos of the moment. "And I'm glad you waited for me after all these years." Angel chuckled, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. "I've loved you since high school, Mia. I would have waited forever if I had to." As we stood there in each other's arms, I couldn't help but marvel at how life had come full circle. Angel and I had been high school sweethearts, but life had torn us apart when Aiden entered the picture. After my divorce, Angel and I had reconnected, and our feelings for each other blossomed once more. We had married in a quiet ceremony just 3 months ago, and now we were starting a new chapter of our lives together. Then my phone buzzed, breaking the moment. It was a text from Wyatt. "Mom, great news. Chloe's pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." In the months that followed, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Wyatt and his wife, Chloe, moved back to the city, eager to be close to family as they prepared for their baby's arrival. They joined us at the factory, bringing new ideas and fresh energy to the business. It felt like everything was falling into place, and though the past had been painful, the future was brighter than I had ever imagined.